Exactly.
Well, greetings and salutations, test takers. This is the Series 7 Guru coming to you from my off-grid location, getting our kicks on historic Route 66. I'm joined by our always very, very special VIP guest, Brian Lee, managing member of Test Geek Exam Prep LLC. He is the Test Geek in flesh form. So we take care of some housekeeping, and then we'll get going on helping you with any content questions you have on any FINRA or NASA exam. If you do have a question, just for giggles, tell us where you're joining us from and what exam you're taking. But if you do have a question about content, it's helpful if you tell Brian and I in the chat what exam is your question about, because how they test things can be different from various exams. Sometimes we can figure it out because there's some things that we just know it's a 65 or 66, but it's helpful. Not necessary, but helpful. If you are looking for a free supplement to your paid study materials, there is no better free supplement than my YouTube channel. I've organized the YouTube channel based on series playlists. So if you're taking your SIE, there are 3 series playlists. They're in suggested watch order. The videos in those are in suggested watch order. It's a buffet. Take what you like, leave what you don't. I'm not going to create a custom playlist just for you. I've had people go, oh, I want a playlist. You know, maybe you sign up for tutoring. I'll do that for you. But, cherry pick it. Take what you want. Now, if you're looking for a particular topic, please use the channel search bar. Brian and I know tonight, and it's okay, that we're going to get asked the same question we've been asked 5 different times over the last 12, 24 months. We will answer it. But if you go to the channel search bar and you put in social media or SPACs, you'll find a little magically Brian and I will appear and talk either in a short or here or in a video. It's available. So that's how you find. Don't try to be finding a needle in a haystack. Use the channel search bar. Now, if you're looking for a paid supplement to your study materials, supplements, I can't recommend anything better than a Kaplan Q Bank if you don't already have it, and the Guru 15 discount code at checkout can get you for Series 7 example, a little under $60, $55, and you get 3,600 questions. Most importantly, with a performance tracker that helps you substantially in remediation. If you combine that with Brian's all-in video courses with a PDF and a practice exam, oh my, now you're cooking with fire. Brian has been kind enough to give our viewers a 20% discount. And I would tell you, if anybody is the master of distillation of your licensed study material content from, I'll pick on Past Perfect, but I could say this about any vendor. And you're saying, oh my God, there's 800 pages here. What's nice about Brian's video course is that you can use it for confirmation. You can say, oh, every once in a while, Brian, I get somebody who, well, Brian didn't talk about this. And I go, and that's a good thing. That's a hint that perhaps that doesn't need to be discussed. When you win tonight, the drawing, if you do win the drawing, you do not win a free tutoring session at a date and time of your choice. No. What you win is a coaching call. And you go to deantenneytutoring.setmore.com. Almost everything on the booking page is paid. The only thing is free, my YouTube channel, everything is free. I don't sell you channel memberships. I don't sell you coffee mugs and t-shirts and hats, none of that stuff. But on the booking page, everything is paid except the coaching call for weekly winners. Now, Brian, I put this up and there's 6 people in there and there's only been 4 drawings. So I don't know what part of that isn't clear. It says weekly drawing for, winners. So we also have a jam session that you can find there. That too is free. We have a book club that meets whenever we read a book, which we hope that we're on pace to do once a month. That's free, but it's pretty on the class tab, tells you what's free and what's not. So if you win the drawing, you go to deantenneytutoring.setmore.com, go to the class tab, and hit the registration for a weekly coaching call for drawing winners. We have social media communities. We have a Facebook community called Baby Brokers Doing Hat Tricks. That is Baby Brokers is a term of endearment. A hat trick is 3 successes in a limited time frame. SIE 766, SIE 663. You get the idea. We have Reddit communities. We have a subreddit for Series 6, our Series 6. We have a Reddit for SIE and Series 7, our Series 7. We have a Reddit for NASA exams, 63, 65, 66, our 66. And we have a Reddit for Series 24, 9s, 10s, 57s, 4s. That's our Series 24. If you miss our live stream, we're here every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Arizona time. It's our ritual, but it's also available afterwards as a podcast on both YouTube and Spotify. Brian, I did have a question come in early tonight about what should I know about the investor advisor representative continuing education model rule for my Series 65 or 66 exam. So if you have a question before we start our live stream, just send it to explicationrequest@guruexamprep.com. So what should you know about the IIR continuing ed model rule for Series 65 and 66? This is being tested. I'll see if Brian has any debrief. What you should know, it's recognition questions. You need 12 credits or hours each year. You need 6 credits on products and practices and 6 credits on ethics and professional responsibility. If you're an agent of a broker-dealer, you can use FINRA's regulatory element to satisfy the 6 credits on products and practices. Nothing carries forward, so if you do 24 in a year, it doesn't carry forward. You can't bank it, is basically what it amounts to. And if you do 8 hours on products and services or products and practice, and then you do 4, you're not at 12. Have you heard any debrief on this, Brian? I've had people telling me
I have, absolutely. And a lot of people are getting the question.
Recognition, but is that what you hear as well, Brian?
That's all it is. And I don't think it's tied to FINRA at all.
Okay, so no FINRA, just the 12 credits.
12 and the breakdown, 6 products, 6 ethics.
Okay. Okay, so let's see what we got going now in our queue here. Okay, first one. Now let me get rid of our banner running across the bottom there. Boom. And comments.
Ooh, how about this
one? Hi, Dean. Hey, Dean. We'll be taking the Series 7 practice exam over and over again in a good practice. No, it's not. Because we're not taking practice tests mindlessly as mice that get through a maze and get some cheese. No. We're taking practice tests to do an intellectual inventory and get a mark of where you're at. And so when you know the answers, you're not getting the mark. And we're trying to use those for diagnostics to know whether we have a margin of safety when you actually take the test. So if you have chewed through all your practice questions, I highly recommend buying either Kaplan QBank. If you already have the Kaplan QBank, maybe STC supplementals. If you have Brian, he only has 1 practice test, but it's pretty spot on. And I would want you to do that as your last kind of mark, maybe a couple days out if you have that. So, Brian, your thoughts on should you do them over and over and over again?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. For your reasons. That means you're memorizing Kaplan's questions or past perfects questions. Because when you go into that test, you're going to get a major surprise. Those questions are not written anything like anyone else's because we're not allowed to. It's copyrighted material. You have to know the concept, not the test question.
And Brim, I would give you kind of a heads up in this regard. When people get high scores and miss their mark, which is rare, it almost always is because they've memorized the questions and don't understand the concepts.
Correct.
And they say, I got an 85 on my STC or my Kaplan or my Brian. And we find out it's their 3rd time through. Even Brian, right? If the first time is a good diagnostic, but if that's your 4th time, I had Brian and he said, are you calling me a liar? I go, well, I'm saying I don't understand how you could have got a 90 on Brian's exam. I just don't see how that's possible. I goes, well, it was my 4th time. I go, okay, well, there we go.
That's
so
right.
that's not
the first time.
Yes, the first time is the diagnostic. So, Brim, neither Brian nor I think this is a good practice. I would also comment, Brim, that Brian and I understand we consider ourselves to be OGs, but there are OGs out there who maybe come from a former error where they do pass out the practice test and say, just practice, drill, and rehearse these over and over and over and over again, and you'll pass your exam. And it's just not true. Maybe it's true in their day. It's certainly not true nowadays.
Yeah.
All right, what's next? Dean, in your opinion, what is the best way to pass the SIE? Well, get the passing score would be the best way to pass. I'm being facetious. You have Kaplan and STC and have been binging all your material. Would love some words of advice. My exam is in 2 months. Well, I think you got plenty of time, and I don't know what you're already scoring if you're doing a practice test. But in terms of building your study plan, Brian and I think we have what we call best practices. And I'll give Brian his board so he can speak this. This is by the way for all exams, not just.
That is correct. There is a best practices. I have a little blog. It's actually in writing. A lot of people ask me this very same question. I send them this blog. I refer to it as the 3-pillar process. The textbook and the practice questions are the first thing you start with. That's what lays the foundation. Dean's videos, my video course, then consolidate that into the most testable concepts that you expect to see. I call it the core content. And then, sometimes people will say, well, I saw 5 or 6 questions that I've never seen on your stuff or the textbooks. Correct. Welcome to the test world. We all get them, right? But that core content is what everybody is going to get that you absolutely have to know, right? So Dean's videos and or Brian's test key videos, that's the consolidation. That's where we know from the last 27 and a half years or whatever it's been, right? This is the core content. It's on the content outline from NASA and FINRA. Everybody gets that stuff. And then, of course, you go through the practice exams, not the same one 18 times. There are many of them. On Kaplan, it's the simulated exams I like. I have one, right? Dean has some replications that he does for practice finals. That's the 3-pillar process, right? Once you get to the practice finals, you take inventory. Oh, I only got a 68%. Then you use the performance tracker to remediate those weak areas. That's the 3-pillar process. Textbooks, our supplements, and then the practice finals.
And good news, CT. On my channel, I have an entire playlist of SIE practice tests from various vendors, including Brian. I have 2 versions. One where you can hit pause. It's just me. Hit play, answer, hit play, and see my explication of that question.
That's right.
But we also have test takers who've been kind enough to share their practice tests with the channel. So in other words, you can watch me and an SIE student do the exam together. Some people, I guess, Misery Loves Company. Those seem to be more popular than just watching me. Same deal though. You hit pause, come up with your answer, see our candidate try and answer, and then see where you're at. But yeah, you want to start doing that once you get through. Now, please note in that first step, I get so aggravated, Brian, when people try and skip that. Right. And we can tell when they don't have enough base knowledge laid from reading the book and doing the exercises and unit quizzes that they're on step 2 and they haven't done step 1. I had CD today. I said, well, what was your practice test score? She had a long kind of thing on social media about how she doesn't feel she's doing well, but left out the data point that we need. What was your practice test score? And then it's anonymous, but she said she's in the 50s. And CT, that means she hasn't laid enough base knowledge. She shouldn't be doing a practice test. She's on step 1 and she's trying to do step 3. And that, you can't do that. You got to go back and lay that base. I call it laying base.
I do too. Laying foundation.
Rhode Island. All right, cool. Yeah. All right. Woo! We ring the bell. For whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee, Cazell. Testing victories. Some bells ring when angels get wings. Our bell rings when people are victorious. I'm not surprised you had all kinds of mutual fund questions. Mutual funds are huge on every exam. And you know what's good is that's going to pay dividends for you on your next leg of your testing journey. Whether that's a series 6, whether it's a 7, you're going to almost be able to pass out of a 6 if you really paid attention and overlearned those mutual funds. European style, not surprised. Most of the options are recognition. So kudos. you want to overlearn that SIE because getting that first texting victory is so key to motivation, right? You don't want to, wobble out of the SIE. You want to kill it. You want to master it. What do you think, Brian? I think you and I are on the same page.
We just want to make sure that everybody understands that little question there. The European style is not associated with mutual funds.
No. European style is a style of exercise on options.
That's right.
And I'm not surprised you would get a recognition question on the SIE about the distinction between American style, where you can be exercised or assigned. It's from the short perspective, more risk, because anytime you're short a call or short a put, and it's American style, you can be forced to sell or buy the stock anytime, not just expiration. European style, non-equity options, typically, if I'm short the call or short the put, I don't have to worry about somebody assigning this, receiving an assignment notice until the last trading day at expiration. So I would think, Kazal, maybe you can confirm this for our SIE test takers. And Brian, I tell people that 3 or 4 option questions on SIE, for the most part, recognition, when do they expire, when do you have to have the option agreement back, maybe 1 strategy question.
It might be a couple of those. There's almost always an intrinsic value question.
Yeah, that's right. If you miss the intrinsic value on the strategy question, you still should be passing the SIE.
That's right.
Studying for the SIE 766. I'm joining from Chicago. I love it. You're going for what we call the hat trick. Woohoo! So don't worry about 7 and 66, man. Just take each exam, show it the respect it deserves. Don't be thinking about 766, even though I just told you, please lay even more base on the SIE. Overlearn that SIE for 2 reasons: to get that testing victory, and then to lay some groundwork for that next part of the exam, right? So we're sending you good test vibes.
If you don't mind me saying, Dean, the only problem with overstudying for the SIE, depending on which firm you start with, sometimes you're not given a whole lot of time, right?
Well, I'm with you. So I got to. Okay. Everybody's situation is different. I just gave Brian's calling me out for giving a blanket recommendation test question. You're not supposed to give blanket recommendations because everybody's situation is unique. Brian, you struck a note with me because when I was in college, I was paying for my own college, working graveyards, just barely holding it together. And I had a college professor I felt like just choking out because he called me into his office and he said, Dean, I wish you would take my class a little more seriously because you're not really spending the time and energy necessary to get the A. You're doing the minimum effort to kind of, get the minimum grade to move on. And I said, it's none of your damn business, but I'm doing all I possibly can. So what do I wish I didn't have to work through college and I was on a scholarship and I could spend 80 hours a week studying your stuff, your content? That's not the world I live in. And I felt like saying, I am the one, you work for me. I did an opening purchase on this college tuition. I'm long the college. You're short. So as a result of that, Brian, I try and stay out of test takers' personal situations because everybody is different. So good point. In an ideal world, maybe
you're absolutely right. In an ideal world, you would want to overstudy, no doubt.
Series 7 checking in from Tampa, Florida. All right. Have my test April 8th. Study. I like it.
Absolutely.
The biggest thing to do is execute your study plan. Be confident in yourself. And then on test day, April 8th, be confident in your answers. All right. Yeah. Are you a quant trader? I am not. I'm the furthest thing from a quant trader. I'm a fundamentalist. That does not mean I'm a member of the religious right. A fundamentalist means I like to think about the economy. Once I get my forecast of the economy or still somebody else's, like Mark Zandi, for example, then I like to think about the industry, and then I like to think about the particular stock. So the answer is no, I am not a quant trader. That sounds like you may be, just because I'm crypto. Have you been able to pay anybody? Do you have any crypto, Brian? You ever been able to pay anybody in crypto?
No.
I wonder if we should try that one day. Brian and I sometimes he's kind enough to let me tag along with him. We go gambling. Wouldn't it be funny if we tried to do an opening purchase for our chips with crypto?
Oh my
You think we could do that?
No.
There's got to be a casino somewhere that would accept
Vegas is too old school, man.
cash.
My computer was held ransom for crypto once.
Oh, was there? Well, because again, right? That's money laundering. Did you pay the ransom?
No, I gave him a big,
Yeah.
FU.
So test question, ask exam, cybersecurity. Got to have cybersecurity. Looks like Brian was lapsed.
It was 10, 12 years ago. It was
wow.
Yeah.
I'm kind of, I hear all the time about YouTube channels like my Brian getting kidnapped and held for ransom. And, it would be hard to do with me because I'm the only guy who has the password. I don't give it to anybody, so I'll let you do it. Hey, Dean and Brian, Columbus, Ohio, 66 tuning in using Kaplan. I have the Test Geek supplemental diving into that this week. All right. Woohoo. I told my interview for the sponsorship how I trade, and they were very impressed. Well, there you go. I just think it depends on the interviewer, right? Because, if I were sponsoring you for a Series 7, for example, I'm interested in not how you trade. I'm interested in, can you find customers?
That's right.
Can you find money? Can you move money? And can you place money? That is the job of a retail broker, not so much managing your own investments. Now, good news, when you do have enough money working for you, then you don't need to work for your money any longer. Brian and I are pretty blessed. We do get gratification from this. But, every once in a while we'll be having cocktails and we're saying, well, we're pretty blessed. Why are we continuing to do this, even though, we could have called in rich a while back, instead of calling in sick. I think it's that cool, Brian, when we get to tell our clients as a practitioner, you now have enough money working for you that you don't need to work for your money any longer.
Right.
We've arrived at our financial destination. So if you want tomorrow, instead of calling in sick, call in rich. When they ask why you're not coming to work, you can say, I got an eye problem. They say, what's wrong with your eye? You say, I can't see coming to work. Now, crypto, how you trade is kind of nice once you get to the point where you have enough work trading that you can do that. But I would say this to you. If crypto, you are poor and deserve to be rich. Because again, if you're already rich, it's going to be hard to find sponsorship. Because we want people who are poor and deserve to be rich, then this industry is for you. If you're poor and you deserve to be rich, I don't think there's any other better industry than the securities industry. Because remember, you don't have a net capital requirement or net worth requirement. You have a sweat equity investment in passing the exams. That's what you need to do. Failed exam last week with a 68. I will link Gordo. I like that Gordo Tex-Mex. I like your avatar. That's a good looking bike there, my friend. I will link to my video podcast episode called You Failed, Is It Over? Spoiler alert, the answer is no. And I have 5 recommendations about how to respond to that misfortune. And I will post that for you. We would both say that while the hurt is fresh, we would like you to take an intellectual inventory, a debrief with yourself. We want you to print out the PDF of the content outline or test specifications and use that as a plus, 0, minus intellectual inventory. Plus means you don't think that's where you missed the mark. You think you were above par, passing. 0 means you're at par. You thought you knew it, but you could improve. And then counterintuitively, we're looking for the minuses. That's where you're below par, and those are the areas we want to target. Now, you want to bring everything above par because the draws can be different. So you got to be prepared for a different draw the next time. I'm wishing for you, Gordo, the next draw to be a dream draw. Everything you studied shows up, but we got to be prepared for those face of death draws too. Marcel, what is the problem with us? I think I put you down for the coaching call tutoring session I owe you. And then I think you weren't there and then I moved it and then you weren't there. We got to figure it out. So let's talk in person on the phone tomorrow and let's get you set up. Right. Yeah, we definitely need to connect. I send you a plane ticket to Vegas or we can have a talk in person. Let's talk in person tomorrow by phone.
And Marcel, I found the best unknown steakhouse in Vegas. It was amazing.
So, Marcel, as you know, Brian and I are carnivores. We are not vegetarians. Brian, was telling me I like it too. Did you find the VIP bar there at the Durango, Brian? There's a staircase. It's really cool.
I got a long story about that.
Oh, tucked under. It's really nice. Nice bartender.
We'll have to talk. I've got some
there
stories.
You go. There you go. Hey, Dean, assess valuation for GO bonds. Yes, that's right. There's no assess valuation for revenue bond. So, Michael, assess valuation is about property taxes, right? I joke, taxes are the price you pay for civilization. Brian owns property in Las Vegas, and he's got a lot of infrastructure there that he needs to pay for. I live off grid. My property taxes, Brian, are nil to none because there is no infrastructure whatsoever. There's no fire. There's no police. There's no nothing. Michael, be careful about this too, because there is a concept that you could test it on called coterminous or overlapping debt. Right. So I was joking about Brian, but Brian and his property taxes in Las Vegas, he's responsible for the infrastructure of Clark County. He's responsible as a taxpayer for the infrastructure of Las Vegas, the Clark County Unified School District. There are all kinds of people that want a piece of that tax. I'm only using Brian because I used to live in Las Vegas and I use that for me, but now we got to do it. Hi guys, Sarah, I got 65 coming up on April 4th. I think I'm burning out. You can run out of fuel on the 65, particularly April 4th. Sarah, give yourself permission to take a day off to refresh and reset. You have time to do it. Do it tomorrow so you don't burn out. You got to stick the landing. And if you're circling the airport, you're just going to. So what do I tell you should do? Take tomorrow off. And then sometimes, Brian, I'm interested to see what Brian says about this, Sarah. If you're a full-time studier, it's easier to burn out. I mean, it's a blessing to be a full-time studier, but it's easier to burn out. It's impossible, particularly on NASA exams, even though you think you might want to study 12 hours a day, it's impossible. So, Sarah, what I ask people to commit to is study blocks. Yes. I say, Sarah, if you're a full-time studier, can you commit to me 4 study blocks of 90 minutes each day? That would be with a 30-minute break to refresh and reset. That's 6 hours of studying. That's your 8-hour day, time to go home. And that's plenty. And I would say, are you going to be able to give yourself a day off? Whether it's Friday or Saturday or Sunday, you need to let your brain kind of relax and come back to it. Now, I'm giving you tomorrow off. Then you come back to it. To make your day work a little better, study blocks. The second recommendation is change the activity in those study blocks. What I mean by that, Sarah, is if you're going to commit to me 4 study blocks, first study block may be reading, second study block, watch a video, third study block, do a practice quiz, 4th study block, whatever. Change activity, change subject area. Don't spend, 4 study blocks on 65 on unethical business practices. Do a block on unethical business practices, a block on analytical methods, a block on disclosures. You mix up the activity and you mix up the subject area, you'll stay fresher, longer. But Brian, I think when people get those high, almost passing scores, there's a lot of variables, but I think one of them is burnout. Whether it's the day they're burnout or their last 20 questions they're burnout. So make sure you have enough fuel to stick that landing, in my plain analogy. Your thoughts, Brian?
Look, those study block analysis is absolutely wonderful. And it can work for you whether you're doing a full day studier or a part day studier.
Yeah.
You got work to do, during the day. You don't get a whole lot of time, but you still got to work in those study blocks. Whether you can only do one study block, right? Because you have to work your day job all day, right? Then just still commit to that one block and change that block within the 90 minutes if you can. Read for 30 minutes, do a quiz for 30 minutes, watch a video for 30 minutes. So no matter how many of those blocks you are allowed to do on a daily basis, it's a great way to concentrate. You don't get burned out. You're changing all the time. It's absolutely perfect.
You're changing the channel intellectually. One more point, Sarah. Brian is so key. If you're a part-time studier as well, you can't be. I had a very smart lady. This was a principal exam, and she's got a lot going on. It's hard for her to carve out the time. And I was giving her tough love and saying, listen, you're not going to be able to do this without carving out a study block, whether it's
That's
one or
right.
two
Gotta be.
in the morning. And then she was chatting herself up. She goes, "You'd be proud of me today. I did my study block, Dean." I said, "You did?" I said, "Great. What'd you do?" She goes, "I did 20 minutes on the subway. I did 20 minutes at lunch. I did 20 minutes after work." I'm like, no, you can't be at your best changing gears that quickly throughout the days. No, I told her, I said, "Listen, how about 5 to 6:30 or 6 to 7:30? Most people's circadian rhythm, Sarah, is better in the morning." And Brian, I think that there should be heroes. And I can't tell you how many single moms, Sarah, I've had
Oh my
who are
goodness.
working. I had a mom, her study block was 4 to 5:30 in the morning before the kids get up. She makes breakfast, a single mom, sending them off to work, no support. I'm like, man, she made it. It makes me less sympathetic, I guess, to people getting 4 months with pay to just study and pass exams. Good if you have somebody who can be a support person. I had a person who told me their spouse was very supportive and drove them to the exam and was helping them. And, so, hey,
Yeah.
it is what it is, right?
Yeah, make sure those study blocks are structured.
Yeah.
Walking the dog at 5 o'clock, having earphones or earplugs, scooping poop, trying to listen to Series 65 just doesn't work.
Yeah, that's not going to work. Not going to work. Missed the 7 twice. Ugh, there we go, Curtis, right? Did you change answers? Did you get tired towards the end? There's lots of variables there. Unfortunately, Curtis, it's not that you didn't know it. You didn't have a knowledge deficit problem. What you had is some other variable, face and death draw. I call it the Dean rule. I don't know, Brian, if you go back this far, but there used to not be a 30-day wait period.
Right. Yeah.
And I would literally tell you, Curtis, just queue up a third time. Just stay down there. Now we make you wait 30 days. Really important, because the third time is serious for all test takers, because that third time, remember, then you have a 6-month wait. Good news. I see you took Brian's practice test, first try, 78. I feel really good about that score. So 14th, make sure again, 14th is a little further out than I'd like. I would prefer that Brian's score was like on the 12th, just as your last check. It's a good score. It's a great data point. Love it. But make sure, same thing, Curtis, make sure you maintain a rhythm that you can maintain between now and the 14th. Brian, your thoughts with Curtis?
We've talked a lot today about study blocks, how to study, the 3-pillar process, but we haven't mentioned it this week. We mention it quite a bit every week, but when you get in there and the test anxiety, you're under the bright lights, there are do's and don'ts, right? You can't overanalyze. You can't overthink this stuff. You can't be changing answers at the end, right? Keep focus. Take the question at face value, because the answer choices are going to be ambiguous enough.
Yeah.
If you start interjecting assumptions into that thing, it's just
Yeah, Brian, you have one of your lines I love. If you're thinking, you're sinking, Brian says.
Mhm.
So true. You gotta be in the flow state. And we're not going to go, Curtis, on a rant. But test prep vendors do have gotcha questions, and sometimes that can get into your own brain housing group, and you end up outsmarting yourself. Don't do that. Don't use your own brain against yourself. Now, Curtis, in most situations, having a big brain housing group is a blessing, but not in taking these tests. Brian, how many times have we seen a very smart person give us a very intellectually coherent, great answer to a question they were not asked? And I said, listen, where is that in this question?
Exactly.
And Brian and I, Curtis, sometimes I say RTFQ, read the full question. RTFA, read the full answer set. I had, Curtis, a college professor, taught me a very valuable life lesson. Again, I'm dating myself. In the old days, we had things called blue books. And a blue book is where you would write your essay. And the college professor said, hey, Dean, here for the whole class, but, me in particular, I thought, wow, I have 5 essay topics on your exam. There'll be 3 and you write on one. And boy, there was one topic, Brian, I said, this is my topic. God would not deny me this topic. And it would be bad faith on my part to study any other topic than that one. I'm living for that essay. Anyways, I thought I was clever. Again, a curse, right, Curtis? I wrote a nice introductory paragraph, and then I answered with wrote the essay I intended. And I'll never forget on my blue book, Curtis, he had F. Back in those days, you had Fs. I'm in the flunk. It said, next time, Dean, answer my question, not yours. See me.
Exactly. That's a
But
great.
he said, Dean, he had another blank blue book for me, Curtis, and he said, you want to try that again? I go, yeah, I've never forgot that, Curtis. So sometimes when I'm doing a question, I always read it one last time with him in mind. Did I answer the question?
That's right.
And Brian, sometimes we're guilty too, Curtis. Sometimes, I don't know about Brian, somebody will ask me a question. I'll think I answered it. And then they'll say, no, Dean, my question wasn't that. My question is, even Brian sometimes has done this. He says, Dean, that wasn't the question. Read it again. So.
I oftentimes will ask a student, if we're doing some one-on-one stuff, I'll ask them, I say, okay, here's a little line for you. It's a very short one, right? And they start going into this analysis, and I go, please forgive me for interrupting, but stop. Now give me a 1 or 2 word answer. That's all I'm looking for. Yeah. I don't want the analysis. Right?
Yeah. On those big ones, Curtis, I sometimes like to read that last sentence first just to see where it ends up. And then I also like to see what answers are available to me. So for Curtis, for example, if I have an answer that says, as stipulated in the prospectus, I go, wow, I like that. I don't know what the question is, but I like that one a lot. Right? So sometimes that might speak to you in terms of seeing what answers are being offered to you. The best thing, Curtis, I can recommend for people who have not suffered the misfortune you have suffered goes back to my earlier comment. If you got a 78 on Brian's practice test, Curtis, I would say that you do indeed have a margin of safety. And that's what we work for, is that margin of safety. Because how nice would it be, Curtis, to have that margin of safety and be able to get a question that fills up the screen and go, you know what? I think I'm just going to guess B on that one. I'm going to assign it to the universe and I'm going to make it up elsewhere. You can't do that if you don't have a margin of safety. And Curtis, I don't think it's worth chewing up brain cells on questions you're not going to get, no matter how many times you sit there. Brian, how often do we have somebody burning up brain cells, time, valuable time, on a question that isn't going to change the more they read it and look at it? And at some point, you just got to be done with the damn thing and move on, right? Point and click, aim and shoot. You got to move on.
I can't understand how somebody can take 3.5 hours to take one of these exams. It's just, that's a lot of analysis.
We're not trying to sort people by how quick they think. So you should have plenty of time. You might run out of right answers, but you shouldn't run out of time. Right. The only way you can run out of time is if you end up, turning an aim and shoot, point and click question into a judgment question that isn't there. So right on, Brian, right? It's not a test about timing, but it is aggravating when people do have time constraints because that means they didn't do practice tests. Joe, welcome. 24 would be 24 in the house. So regulations show is about a locate requirement to establish a short position. So you're not allowed to do what's Joe called naked short selling short without the intention to make delivery. So that's all about locating the security and then closing you out if you have not delivered the security, if there's a fail to deliver for 13 consecutive settlement dates. Firms take easy to borrow lists where we don't have to worry about this. We know the securities we can locate. Right now, the other part of this, Joe, is that remember, we're getting the borrowed securities from either one of our customers who signed the loan consent form, which is optional, or we're getting it from another broker-dealer stock loan. And we have to give it back upon demand. High 60s, I like that. Testing Friday. I don't know who your test prep vendor is, Joe. And that would be helpful for me to know, are you getting a high 60 on Notman Marks or STC or Kaplan? Because there is some variance in the practice test scores, particularly on 24 with test prep vendors. And then I'll turn it over to Brian, Joe. It cracks me up. Brian, has your experience been, my experience has been that 24s bitch more about their test prep vendors than any other exam. Yep. Whether it's STC or Kaplan or Pass Perfect or Notman, they never blame themselves. And I feel like telling them, you wouldn't accept that from your Series 7s. If they came back and said, oh, it's Pass Perfect's fault. It's Notman Mark's fault. It's the Kaplan's fault. So 2 things, Brian. Has that been your experience on 24s who blame test prep vendors instead of themselves? And secondly, what do you think about regulation show as it applies? One more point before I turn it over to Joe. Make sure we have to report short positions, very testable, Joe, 24 twice monthly.
That's right.
And that's very important, both the short positions of our customers and the broker-dealer. Brian?
So now I got to remember all those questions.
Yeah.
Show, you're absolutely right. The report questions there, location is there, closeout, the 13 days may be there. They can be, this question can be a days question.
Yeah.
How many days for this? How many days for that? So there are 1 or 2 show questions on the test. No
You know what I would recommend, Joe, and I'll link it, is Brian has a beautiful video on buy-ins and sellouts. Yeah. And if you don't deliver that security, remember, you can't do naked short selling is the point. If you don't deliver the security and I'm going to buy you in, I think that could be tied into regulations. Joe, Brian, your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, the closeouts and the buy-ins, absolutely. As long as you understand that process, and that's why I visually show somebody that my famous stick figures,
yeah,
right? Handing over cash, receiving securities, those sorts of things. Yeah. One other thing about the 24, you're absolutely right, Dean. Everybody complains about their test prep vendors for the 24. Now, having said that, I always find the greatest amount of success from people who use Kaplan and STC.
Yeah.
The combination of the two seems to have a pretty high
now,
success.
Joe, you're testing Friday, so a little too late for you to
be. Exactly. Yeah.
But I'm with Brian. So let's talk about this on 24, but let's talk about it for other things as well, Brian.
Yeah.
I don't think Brian and I, well, I'll speak for me and I'll let Brian either say he agrees or disagrees. We're pretty simpatico, so I'll be surprised if he has an antithesis to my thesis here. We don't think that when it comes to any test, you should be monogamous. We think that if you have the resources, now I know starting out, you may not have the resource. I had somebody today and they asked me, should they do this or this? I said, you should do both if you have the resources, because you want to get used to different phraseology, different concepts. You want to be able to confirm things. And so 24s, I'm with Brian, because 24, Joe, we do assume you have more resources than a baby broker. I just finished a 24. The guy is so cool. He's so super cool. And I told him, I'm so glad our reason and season is over. Joe, we met twice a week for, 3 months on his 24. We did 2 24 practice tests together. He had failed it twice and he was taking over a family business. And I'm about to tear up because it was just so important to him, so important to me. And he got that testing victory this week. And I just felt great. Now, good news, Joe, he had the resources. I tried to tell him, I said, man, I appreciate you. I don't usually, Joe, let people run tabs. They have to pay, but he owed me several $1,000s when it's all said and done. I knew he was good for it. And I just really, it warms my heart when this 24 obstacle. I had another guy, Joe, he was an internal wholesaler and he got a promotion that required the 24. He said, Dean, I make a very good living, but my promotion is dependent on the 24. And I'm not going to get fired, but I'm going to go back to my other position. And this position is so much better. I said, well, let's get it. Let's get it done. I always joke, fear and greed, Joe, are great motivators. And a lot of 24s, it's greed in a good way, right? That you're going to get a pay bump, I hope. Yeah, Brian.
So bottom line to that is get both Kaplan and STC.
Yes, but whatever. Listen, don't leave any arrows in your quiver as a test taker. No arrows in your quiver should be left when you're done. So if that means getting tutoring, if that means getting more than one test prep vendor, whatever that means, make it so. Make it so. And one other good point about that, Brian, then you can blame more people, right? You can blame STC and Kaplan and Brian and Dean. Yeah. Good evening. Oh, well, thank you so much. The discount code is Guru15 at checkout. So thank you so much. That works for all Kaplan products and services, Bhuvana. So thank you. Benita, wow. Hi, I took the 63 third time. I failed by 2 points in October. I'm preparing to take it 26th of April. I have Brian's video and I reread the manual. What else can I do? Benita, what else can you do is, I'm just seeing what you got here. And you reread the manual. How are you doing on your QBank, Benita? Do you have any unused questions in your Kaplan QBank, or have you done that? I think, Benita, I'm going to suggest what we just suggested for Joe, is that you get another test vendor so you have a different voice and you have different questions to look at. So that would be my recommendation, is switch it up. Kaplan, I think, is the best, but get STC, get Notman Mark, so you have a different voice and you have more questions. Your thoughts, Brian?
Yeah, absolutely. Dean, a question for you. Does STC sell their QBank a la carte?
They don't sell QBanks, but they sell supplemental exams.
Okay, there
So
you
you have to buy. Okay, this is probably the first time I've ever said this. Brian, I don't know.
Good thing I asked.
This could be a first.
Uh-oh.
I'm not a big fan of Achievable, Benita, but they are, what's the right word? Cheap, inexpensive. And if you are frugal, maybe that's an option for you. I would warn you that I don't like their questions in practice tests because of the variance on the actual exam. But Brian, their former guy who wrote their content and subject matter expert, who's left, who kind of worries me because who now is their subject matter expert, is Brandon Rith. He's pretty good at prose, so just explaining things. So maybe you might want to consider that as one of your options. But I think different test prep vendor. None of the other vendors want, even Achievable, Brian, want to sell QBanks separately, right? You can go to my thing, Benita. If you go to my Series 63 playlist, I'd be interested, Benita, and I'll leave it to you to do the due diligence homework. See if I have any 63 exams that aren't Brian or Kaplan. And if not, send me an email, dean@guruexamprep.com. I have a pretty good relationship with Notman Marks and STC. And Benita, maybe I will put up a 63 practice test with either me or a student doing it together from either Notman or STC. Brian, no surprise, Past Perfect hates me. And, Achievable doesn't care for me either. So
I'm sure they don't care for either one of us.
Well, I would explain it this way. You're still an investment advisor. You need to register, whether you call yourself something different.
Right.
So I would say investment counsels, Buvana, meet the ABC test. They give investment advice. They tell people they're in the business of giving investment advice. They want compensation. They need to be registered. Your thoughts, Brian?
It's an old term. It's been in the textbook a long time, and I don't know if it's ever tested in the last.
Does anybody use it anymore?
No, not that I know of.
So Stacy doesn't introduce herself as an investment counselor?
That's not a term that she uses. Yeah. It's not a term that her and I ever talk about. Like I said, it's been in the textbook at least 30 years.
The reason it's in the textbook is, but here's my thoughts, Brian. On all these NASA exams, the templates you're being tested on come from the 50s.
Yes, they do.
And how people talked in the 50s is different than today. So, for example, I would call it a trucking company or an airline, but on the test, it would be a common contract carrier.
Common carrier, yeah.
Right. So, it's welcome to NASA exams.
Yeah.
Pass the SIE. Woo! Working on the 7. Love it. Going for the hat trick. So, second leg of your testing journey, then the 66. Love it. Right there, man. Use Kaplan for the SEC. Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So
exactly. Yeah.
Why, if you had some reason to change, I remember I told somebody just a minute ago, I think it was Benita, to change it up. But if it's working, there's no need to change it up. Why complicate your life? The Series 7 at Kaplan, the subject matter expert on the 7 is Bill James. They do. Brian's not a big fan of Bill James, but I think that the Kaplan QBank is the best for all the exams, by the way. I think the Kaplan QBank, nothing better. Individual Kaplan instructors like Dean, individual, kind of books, maybe not. But in total, I think, Brian, would you agree the Kaplan QBanks are the best?
That platform is definitely the best.
Yeah.
The technology, the platform they have, even with the recent changes, I'm getting used to the new changes. The bar graphs and all those kind of things.
Yeah.
It's still the best platform out there.
I think so. Remember, stick a 15% discount code at checkout, Guru15. Hi, Dean, exactly what you all talked about. Vince Costa here from Kaplan Series 66 class. Oh, Vince, what a great class. Take a class. I ran through 6 different, looks like this is a good practice did questions. I missed scoring. Should I take? Yeah. In the sake of time. Okay, so let's talk about this, Vince. What a great class. So, Brian, I keep thinking Brian knows this about me. I keep thinking about giving up the classes. We're just talking about, I think about going back into real retirement. But I do enjoy teaching a lot. And boy, Vince, that class was so nice. And that, I call it my ice cream money. I don't really make a whole lot of money teaching a Kaplan class, more than any other Kaplan instructor, but I'm not a Kaplan employee. They contract with my LLC to teach a class every now and again for them. Anyways, I like that as a backup plan. I've heard other people, Brian, tell people they should go right for a 63, 65 instead of a 66. And I don't think that makes any sense. But if you miss the mark on a 66, then I think as a plan B, immediately go take a 63 and 65. It is very likely that you could pass out of those with the work you've done on the 66. The difference is Uniform Securities Act is Uniform Securities Act. The difference primarily on the 65s, you're going to have more economic questions. Your thoughts, Brian, about 63, 65 versus 66? By the way, that's only available. 66 is only for a 7. You can't take it. 66 doesn't work without a 7.
I too, Dean, always found the Series 66 classes to be the most enjoyable. The content's difficult. It's difficult to get through it in 2 days, but most of the folks have been with me from the prior 7.
Is that cool?
So there's a familiarity with it. But unlike Dean, I retired from teaching 6 years ago. The only reason I would probably go through the 63, 65 process if I didn't make the mark the first time with the 66 and there's some time constraints and I got commissions waiting for me, then perhaps I'd go the 63, 65 route. But the 66 is one of my favorite classes and it's one of my favorite exams because I'm a geek.
Yeah, he is the test geek after all, ladies and gentlemen. Well, Simon, what are you doing here, man? Oh, maybe you're on the West Coast. Make sure, Simon, you are confident in the execution of your study plan. You're confident in yourself. Most importantly, tomorrow, be confident in your answers. You should not be scared. Hey, listen, Michael Jordan got sick and he had one of the best games of his career.
Wow. Yes, he did.
So, sometimes when you're Simon, I'm going to put a positive spin. I don't like that you're sick. I wish you weren't. That being said, though, your brain sometimes gets more focused when you're sick because your brain is, it's trying to, kind of process. I would like you to be in the best health possible. I should comment in general, Simon. I can't tell you how many people get sick while they're studying because they're drawing down their brain and they're not paying attention to making sure they're still working out or, trying to, as much as possible, keep their normal routine. I'm going to bet, Simon, that tomorrow, I'm giving you the testing victory today. I'm giving it to you. There are 2 reasons I'm giving it to you. Mid-70s is a great data point. You got an 82 on Kaplan, and you need motivation. Well, we're here for you. Listen, Tuesday, you're not alone. Join us on Tuesdays. Even victorious test takers, come back. Sometimes people just need to be bucked up. And, like our friend Simon. Simon, put in the chat. It looks like we're coming here to close. I hope I'll get it, Simon. But tomorrow, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to call FINRA tonight and arrange for you tomorrow a dream draw. I'm going to tell FINRA to only give you the questions that you're prepared for. The second thing I'm going to do tomorrow is I'm going to astro project all of the right answers to you tomorrow. So don't change your answers. FINRA, if you're listening, it was a joke. I don't have control of any draw of the exam. We're amazing. Well, Simon, let's just circle back. Remember, send me an email. I'll be with you in spirit tomorrow, Simon. My email is dean@guruexamprep.com. I will be thinking of you tomorrow, sending you good test vibes. Send me an email when you claim that testing victory. And come back Tuesday and tell us of that testing victory as well. Brian, what do you think? Are you like me? You hopeful for our friend Simon?
I love his scores. His scores are really, really good. Just keep getting through that thing. I'm telling you, I love the Michael Jordan analogy. He had a phenomenal game when he was sick. He had the flu.
Yeah, the flu game. It's known as the flu game. The rumors are, Simon, that the Utah fans poisoned him.
Go get him, Simon. Go get him.
Yeah, go get him. Go get him. Who accrues 12B1 fees? Well, there's a couple test questions here. The shares vote. the outside board votes and the board of directors vote. So it has to be voted on. I don't like the word approve, voted.
Yeah.
Voted by the shares, the board of directors, and the disinterested board members, at least of whom are 40%. I would also know, Buvana, that the maximum promotional expense a no-load fund can charge and still refer to themselves as a no-load fund is 0.25, 25 bips, 1/4, 1%. If you're a loaded fund, the most you can charge over the life is 3/4 of 1%, 0.75 or 75 bips. That should be an aim and shoot point and click question. You think it's an aim and shoot point and click, Brian?
Depends on what test he's taking.
Buvana also know that that's a promotional expense, not an investment advisory fee. Yeah. So this is paid not by the customer. Customer pays the load. The customer does not pay the promotional expense. The fund does. And I would know it's a promotional expense for ads, for marketing, to pay brokers. It's not part of managing the money. They gave you 6 months. Wow, that's great. I love it. 6 months. That almost might be too much time. What do you think, Brian? 6 months?
You better not spend 6 months on one exam.
Yeah, because but the problem with 6 months,
6 months,
you can end up forgetting the caboose.
Yeah, that's
you
right.
can forget what you did in Unit 1. So, I would, even though they gave you 6 months, rules crypto. What do you think, Brian? I would go for 2 months. What do you think? 2 months?
That's exactly right. There you go. Don't go longer than 2.
Yeah.
66. It won't take 6 months.
Can I explain alternative minimum tax? I certainly can. It's very testable. Yeah. So there's 2 questions. It's a binary suitability question, Dylan.
Yes,
I say, Brian, are you subject to the AMT? He would know if he is or not. He'd say yes or no. So we don't need to get into the weeds on that part. But if he says yes, then I say, Brian, I'm not going to recommend to you in industrial development revenue bond a private activity bond. That's very testable because the interest for you, Dylan, will be taxable if you're subject to the AMT. So, Brian, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah. Again, I think you used one of the synonyms. You got to be careful. In the textbooks, they typically use the term industrial development revenue bonds. It's the only municipal bond that's subject to the alternative minimum tax. On the test, oftentimes, or some of the trying to trick you, they will instead use the term private purpose bond, which essentially is an IDR. It's the same terminology. I believe it's also in the textbook as well, but they focus more on that term than that term. So if you're subject to this alternative minimum tax, that means you make a lot of money and you've hired a lot of attorneys to avoid paying taxes. So this bond is not for you. This is least suitable for someone who is subject to the alternative minimum tax.
That's right. I say, Dylan, as your accountant, I got good news and bad news. The good news is you have lowered your tax liability so much that you're now subject to the AMT.
Right.
And you're going to pay the greater of. The other thing that's very testable, I just did a tutoring session today, Brian. I just love this, Dylan. When the guy has a tutoring session and he books it like 2 days before the exam, I go, ugh. But good news for him, he demonstrated that he's going to pass this exam. One of the things he didn't know, Dylan, I don't think it put him at risk. The other thing to know about IDRs is corporate credit backs that bond.
That's right.
So that would be the other thing I would know, right? So there you go. Tenement and Series 7, the binary suitability question. Are you subject to the AMT? If so, we don't recommend an industrial development bond.
Right. Yeah.
Christopher, hey, Dean, I test on the 19th of April, 4 weeks in. First 3 exams, 135, 91, 35. Brian, Christopher is the math geek. What is that percentage, Brian?
91 is a 70%.
Okay.
But NASA's really weird about this. This is a Series 65 exam. You need you need 92, which is like a 70.6.
Isn't that suck?
It's so
Christopher, we don't know what exam you're taking. I don't see that here.
Yeah.
I like the scores, but yeah, boy, people get so mad.
I know they do.
It
looks like he's taken the Series 65 by the number of questions.
Okay, there you go. Good.
Yeah, so 91 is roughly.
Isn't there 10 experimentals on the Series 7, Brian? Wouldn't that put him at 135?
That is correct. You're right.
Yeah. So, Christopher, let us know what exam you're taking. I think you're right where you need to be, though. Listen, that's a great score. You've got 35% QBank usage. Christopher, Brian, This is one area where Brian and I kind of disagree. If you fail your exam, and Christopher, I'm not your corporate trainer. Let's say I am. I have the ability to fire you, let you go. So, Christopher, not good if I'm talking about your U5. U4 is hello. U5 is goodbye. And if you miss your exam, the first thing Dean's going to do as a corporate trainer is I'm going to pull up your QBank usage rate. I think you're right where you need to be. And I love that you told me that's 35%. So you got a lot of performance opportunities. That's what I call test questions, practice questions ahead of you. And I think that exam is going to go up. There's a direct correlation in my experience to QBank usage rate and failing the exam. In other words, when somebody fails and I look at their QBank usage rate, it's so frustrating to me, Brian. I had somebody miss their mark today. And then we were talking about whether they need to buy another QBank or buy another provider. And they told me, Christopher, they were at your QBank usage rate after taking the test. Now, Brian, here's where I think I'm going to turn it over to Brian a minute. I am one of the few people who believe in trying to max out the QBank. In terms of me as a test taker, just me. Remember, Brian gave me grief for a blanket recommendation. So I'm taking that in. I'm going to say in my experience, I like to put on my agenda doing every practice question available before I test. I understand that may not be possible for a lot of folks. Brian, I think, says he thinks if you can get a 70, 75%, I agree with him on this. I'm like, unit 1 is a custom quiz, move on to unit 2. And that there's no really value in, if you're getting those scores, to trying to maximize out the QBank. However, I think you're in good shape. So, Brian, your chance to correct me on what I just said.
No. And I don't think we're that far apart. I just don't think doing 3,600 questions for Series 65, because 20-30% of those are just so far in the weeds. All it does is just kind of confuses people.
Gotcha.
I like to concentrate on core content and a little bit more. So where that line is, though, Dean, I don't know.
Well, Christopher, today I asked a tutor, I was tutoring somebody. I said, what do you want to do? You want to do some slides? You want to do some practice questions? What do you want to do? They chose some practice questions to do. And here's Brian's point. Good news. I get to, you got tutoring. So I got to tell you, don't worry about that one. Yeah, that's not something you need to worry about. Ooh, we need to worry about that. Brian, when I'm tutoring, we choose to do the practice questions. I have what I tell people is a bad miss. And I told this guy today, I go, hey, good news. I said bad miss to you twice. That means don't worry about it. If 3 out of 10 times I'm going, that's bad miss. Things you should know. Earlier, we had somebody who asked us, Dylan, that would be a bad miss if he missed this thing about the industrial development bond, corporate credit backing it, and it's subject to the AMD. That's a bad miss. That's something he should know before test time. So I agree with Brian on that front, that every once in a while too, Brian, I said, well, it's a good question. I don't really think it's on your test. I like it. It speaks to me. And here's why it speaks to me. And, Series 7 using Brian's options matrix. I think he calls his as the aerobics thing, but we both believe and teach options very similarly. So, Jordan, I always say, don't get too many different voices that do things differently. Brian wouldn't be our guest if, he was doing something dramatically different than I do. I'm sure I wouldn't be his guest if I was doing it, because it could just confuse people. But Brian and I believe in doing the same way. Brian actually incorporates hedging into his matrix. I don't do that. And sometimes people do get confused about that. So the opposite, remember, hedging is about what if you're wrong, right? If you're wrong, what happens? And so I'll let Brian explain to that.
I see we're kind of running over time, so I'll try to be as quick as possible. You're absolutely right. The options we use are, as you put it, are in the opposite direction of the stock position, because the options are there for the risk direction. So if you're long stock, right, which is bullish, right? You buy stock because you want it to go up. However, you're using the short call and the long put, the opposite direction, because that's the risk direction. And in my video course, I spell all that out. That's the risk direction.
So let me just add, Brian, here. Let me just add real quickly that the way I say it, Jordan, is Brian is telling you that you're interested in the offset, right? So if you bought the stock, you're going to be interested in selling the stock. So that it could only be a short call obligation to sell the stock you own, or a choice to sell the stock you own, right? That's the offset. That's how I say it, Brian. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. We're running over. There's a great story as to how that came about. It was actually I taught a class.
Well, listen, I am giving us permission. It's up to you, Brian. Do you have any bets tonight? I've given ourselves finished tomorrow.
The hedge is one that is the only option strategy that actually involves a stock position, right? All the other ones are just the option position. So I thought, how are you going to put a stock position on an option matrix?
Yeah.
And I did this in a class in Chicago, and we were doing an overnight, late night, after hours kind of thing. And then somebody said, well, you're always looking at the risk direction, right? So for long stock, it's going to be those two. So I said, oh, well, why don't we just draw an arrow between those two and say, for a long stock, these are the two options you always look at.
Yeah.
And it all came together, and it was kind of like an aha moment.
Now, remember too, Jordan, it sounds like you have Brian's content. Listen, I'm not Brian's defender. Okay, I lie. Sometimes I do defend him. But Brian is more than happy to talk to any of you about his content.
Please.
So send him an email, give him a call. Sometimes, Brian, nowadays, the channel is so busy that I just don't have time to be your defender as much as I like. I just say, hey, call Brian. He's more than happy to chat with you about any of his content.
Absolutely.
Can broker-dealers be incidental and not be required to register? Cody, the answer is yes as an investment advisor, but no as a broker-dealer. There's no situation in which a broker-dealer is not going to be registered. But if the old-fashioned business model, Cody, is you don't pay for the relationship you have with me, Cody. I'm a traditional stockbroker. As part of that relationship, I give you investment advice. It's free. Sometimes it's to buy or sell a security that generates a transaction to my broker dealer that charges you, Cody, a commission or markup or markdown. I get a payout based on that. So, Cody, my broker dealer is not registered as an investment advisor, and I'm not registered as an investment advisor rep. My broker dealer is registered as a broker dealer, and I'm registered as an agent of the broker dealer. So that would be my answer. Your comment, Brian?
Yeah, I think that question is fairly common in some practice questions. Yes, broker-dealers are incidental as advisors all the time.
Yeah.
Just like Dean says, I tell my customer, I'll tell you what, I think it'd be a good time to go conservative. There's some advice. Does that make me an advisor? No, because it's incidental. I didn't charge for that advice.
Yeah. Unknown Steakhouse. Marcel, Brian and I got you covered, my friend. It's on us when you get here. You got to I'm not going to get you a ticket. But once you get here,
I'm taking notes every time I go into a steakhouse.
Any other topics? Hammer down on 24 Friday. Joe, Brian and I always make sure you got trace, dual side reporting, 15 minutes. FINRA releases immediately for debt securities, definitely with no trace. Brian, didn't we get this question like testable topics on 24? Joe, do me a favor, put 24 in the search bar. And I think we got asked about things that people aren't prepared for in 24 in our earlier thing, Brian. I think it's available as a video. Any other topics I really need to hammer down? Well, supervision. So here I go with some negative energy here. Brian, we are running over. I'm giving us permission. You don't have to stick around. You may have a ball game or something. I got something queuing up. But we have 52 people, test takers here in the queue. So we are running over. Remember, we do finish with the weekly draw. So, Joe, here's what I would say to you on the 24. Make sure you have sales supervision down because it's mainly about babysitting sevens. And when we lose somebody, Joe, on 24, and I'll see if Brian confirms this, I don't want to put out negative energy, but it's somebody who's a packaged product person. They've been doing mutual funds for decades, and now they struggle on things they have never dealt with, banking and trading. Right. I don't ever lose, Brian, a banking trading person because they struggle on the retail component, but it's not enough to kill them. Your thoughts, Brian?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always trading and banking, investment banking. Those are the two areas that they typically score the lowest on average, about 80% of the people. Those are the two areas you really want to bucket
Joe, if I
down.
was doing a 24 class, 20 people, I expect everybody to pass, but when they don't, that's usually the case, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Make sure you have a good understanding of the bid and the ask and from whose perspective that market making stuff. Locked and cross markets. Woo-hoo! You are welcome. You are welcome. We are running over. I'm just seeing Brian. I'm just cherry picking here. I cannot understand the difference between official statement and legal opinion, where they're entirely different things. Peter, the official statement is the prospectus-like document that makes disclosures so you can make an informed decision, period, full stop. The legal opinion is not a document. It's a bond counsel who is opining about the legislative authority of the issuer, that the bonds are federally tax exempt, and there is no prospectus requirement. The test question there is two. Who does it? A bond counsel. Test question, they can give you qualified or unqualified. And then notice of sale is published in the Daily Bond Buyer. Test question, which is a newspaper widely read in the municipal market. And the notice of sale would be an indication that it's a competitive underwriting. Various syndicates will be formed, and whoever provides the issuer with the lowest net interest cost, that syndicate wins. So they're entirely different things. If I ask you, what is the prospectus-like document when underwriting munis? Official statement. Who does a legal opinion? A bond counsel. The legal opinion, the bond counsel opines on which of the following, or all the following except. Qualified without reservation or with reservation. Qualified's bad, unqualified's good. Notice of sale published in the Daily Bond Buyer. Competitive underwriting. Looks like Brian has.
Well, very quickly. I tried to do it quick. Yeah, this thing is by the bond attorneys about the legal aspect of the bond, that the interest is tax-free, that the municipality is actually allowed to issue the bond. It's exempt from the 33 Act. It's just the legal crap between the attorneys and the issuer, the municipality. The official statement is typically for customers. It's in lieu of, instead of a prospectus. Because if I'm out there selling it to an institution, to a mutual fund, I want to hand them some disclosure information, a description of the bond, what it is, what it pays, how long it is. So that's basically for the retail and institutional customers. This is for the issuer to make sure that all that stuff is legal. So there's a big difference. And it's typically written by the underwriters with the help of the issuer.
Right on, right on. Looking forward to it. I think tomorrow's the coaching call. I'll see you there. I am a little concerned, Alexi. Did you win the drawing? It's okay. I'm not going to kick you out tomorrow if you didn't win the drawing. It's a coaching call for the weekly drawing winners. As I said, Alexi, it looks like Alexi, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Looks like we have more people than winners of the coaching call. I'm not going to kick anybody out. A lot of times it's just one person. It would just be us. But tomorrow I think we're going to have quite a few folks in that. Just answer the question right on. I didn't change any answers. There we go. During my review, I noticed the 3 of them were wrong. So I was so afraid to change them. So Benita, you should never change an answer unless you meet 2 requirements. And it looks like you did the right thing not to change your answer. It's not enough to know you got the answer wrong. That doesn't mean you change it. You got to meet the second criteria is that you absolutely know what the right answer is.
That's right.
Otherwise, you leave it alone. So I think you did the right thing. Well, Jordan, we do have 2 memory aid devices for break evens and spreads. 2 tricks. One trick is to know the break even has to be somewhere between the strikes. That gives you a 50-50. And then Brian has been kind of to put up CAL. That stands for call, add to the lower, put, subtract from the higher. Now, Brian, I do pride myself, and Jordan, I pride myself, all of you, on starting this thing on time and finishing on time. We are now 15 minutes over. I'm willing to make an exception when we have a lot of people who are test takers, but let's bring this to a close here quickly. Brian, thank you so much for being patient as well in terms of running over. Thanks for that. Burned out, failing by 7, by 1 point.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that just drives me nuts when people miss it by 1 away. You know, then it's hard to let it go because you're like, oh man, what should I have done? Jordan, man, you should have been here earlier because you're late. You're coming in late. I don't know. Maybe you were here from the beginning, Jordan. But 15 minutes, we're running over. Tax equivalent yield, tax-free equivalent yield. So you're either going to have to take a muni and say, Jordan, getting 5% tax-free is the equivalent of getting X tax equivalent. Or you're going to get a taxable yield and have to figure out what the tax-free equivalent is. The one that's most likely is to give you a corporate bond like 8%. So Dean bought $100,000 of Ford Motor Company debentures paying 8%. So that means Dean's going to get $8,000 in annual interest. Let's say Dean is in a 40% tax bracket. So I'm not really getting $8,000. I'm going to give of the $8,000, 40% back. So 8,000 times 40%. That's $3,200 that I owe in taxes. So I ended up with $4,800. So Jordan, that means Dean got 4.8 as a tax-free equivalent. Right after paying my taxes, I ended up with 4.8. Now, so that means if I could have got a muni paying 5, I should have done that instead of the Ford Motor Company debentures. Right? If I can get 4, then I should buy the Ford Motor Company debentures. Now, you're either going to be multiplying or dividing. I think the way to go is the way I just presented it to you. Full-time student, should you study on weekends? Well, it depends. I mean, full-time studier, I would just keep your rhythm on weekends, Alexi, as a full-time studier. So just do enough Saturday, keep your rhythm. Sunday, keep your rhythm. So when you come back in Monday. STC. All right, Brian, I think it's time for the drawing. I'm just saying we got any.
Let's do it.
Read achievable material. I'm getting low 60s on Kaplan. Failed 65 today. Yuck. And desire. I hate that. 87. Ugh. I will post my podcast episode, what to do, how to respond to that misfortune. By the way, right now, there is a premiere of Office Hour on the YouTube channel. So I'll get over there and chat in just a minute if you want to join us. Look up your videos right on. Okay, Brian, you're in charge of the word. I apologize for those of you still in the queue. We apologize, but get here earlier next time. Yeah, you did, Alexi, because it doesn't lock you out just because you didn't win the tutoring. Baseball, is that going to be? Now you got to put it, don't do it yet because I got to get the tool first.
Don't do it yet.
Wheel of Fortune. And so you got to put it into the Wheel of Fortune. So it sounds like Alexi, Brian, didn't actually win the coaching call she's registered for tomorrow. Doesn't matter. I will honor that. Let me choose the live stream here. Boom. Boom. And baseball. And now let me go put that up. Start collecting. Okay. Let me go to my.
It's opening day this weekend.
Oh, you're excited. You are such a baseball. You're not only a test geek, Brian. You are a baseball geek.
I am.
In the best sense of the word. So I know how excited you are. Are you going to any spring training?
No.
What happened with Achievable? I'm not sure what you mean. What happened to Achievable? There still should be there, unless like Chief, there's something I don't know. I mean,
do we know what happened to Brandon?
There's a part of me that wants to find that out.
I know, me too. Yeah.
And I don't think my reach out would be considered
friendly.
Yeah, well, no, because I think Brandon knows I have nothing with Brandon. Right. I think, Brian, it's kind of like you and I, right? Owning our content. And I'm just speaking out of school here. So somebody said, "Oh, Chief was going to see you." I go, "Bring it on." I'm a litigious guy. I like fighting. Brian and I's personalities are different in this regard. Brian likes to get along with people, and me, I do too, but some situations not much. But I think that if they were for real, Brian, and what I mean by for real is so Brian, did you get this when people tell you that they're so impressed that the CEO of Achievable calls them? I don't find that impressive. That means there's no customer service. Right? I mean, you know, if I bought an Apple phone and I called and Tim Cook said, "Hey, Dean, I hear you got a problem with the Apple phone." So I think it's a lack of wanting to invest in infrastructure. That would include
Gotcha.
Brandon. And I'm not sure if he was, if he got a royalty. I hope so. That he didn't have to give up content. At one point, they were asking me to help him with content, Brian. And I said, no, you're not going to. One reason I don't do content for Kaplan. It's like, no, you can't pay me one off. Right. Kaplan paid me $50,000, Brian, to write their 79 textbook for them. And I still pissed off because I think I should get 50 and like $2 or $3 every time they sell a book.
2 and 20.
There you go. 2 and 20. 2 and 20. All right. Are we ready to draw? We got 17 people. So let's hit the draw button. Everybody can win except Marcel. No more winning for Marcel. He wins too often. All right. The winner is. Oh, there's Marcel went by. I just saw Marcel. Alexi, oh, man, you are a pilot. Well, that means that you're okay to be in the coaching call tomorrow because now you are a winner. So you did it kind of backwards fashion, but I will see you tomorrow for that coaching call. Okay, back to Brian and I. Boom. Boom. So, hey, thank you so much. We've had a great Tuesday night with you. We appreciate it. We apologize for running over. We very rarely do. So get in early. You should not count on that there's going to be a 20-minute overtime session on these Tuesday nights. That being said, remember, inch by inch, your exam's a cinch. Yard by yard, your exam is hard. And Brian, you say?
You got to learn to keep it simple. Stay with what you know. You take the test. Don't let the test take you.
Oh, man. Hoorah. All right, everybody. See you next Tuesday, if not sooner. Alexi, I'll see you tomorrow. Marcel, I'll talk to you on the phone in person tomorrow. All right, everybody. See you next time. Next Tuesday, 5 p.m. Arizona time.